Dr. Mara Ellison stood in the quiet hallway of Outpost Vale 9, holding a small datapad in one hand and a luggage case in the other. She had only been on the station for 7 minutes, yet something already felt wrong. The air felt colder than she expected, and the lights flickered every few seconds in a way that didn't match the station's usual maintenance logs she'd studied. She had traveled 2 systems to get here. Her assignment as a xenolinguist sounded simple on paper. Study any unusual signals near the quarantined planet Droshel. Catalog possible alien communication structures. Assist research teams, and avoid danger. She had been told the station was calm, quiet, and slightly boring. Nothing in the briefing mentioned a strange feeling that something unseen was watching the halls. With a slow breath, Mara reached the door marked, "Commander Lysa Adek, authorized personnel only." She knocked twice. For a moment, nothing happened. The hallway remained silent, almost too silent, as if the air itself was waiting. Then the door slid open just halfway. Commander Lysa Adek appeared, but not in the crisp uniform Mara expected. Instead, she stood there in a simple gray bathrobe, her hair slightly damp as if she had just rushed from the shower. Her expression was tense, not embarrassed, but alert, serious, and deeply troubled. Before Mara could introduce herself, Lysa spoke first. Her voice held a sharp edge, the tone of someone who had been awake too long and seen something she could not easily explain. "You won't want to go back to your place." Mara blinked. What?" Lysa stepped aside, motioning her into the room. "Get in." Mara hesitated only a moment before entering. The door slid shut behind her with a soft metallic whisper. Inside, the commander's quarters were neat but lived in. A desk with organized datapads, a half-finished cup of tea, a holographic star map hovering in the corner, and a long window showing the swirling clouds of Droshel far below. But Mara barely noticed any of this. What caught her attention was Lysa's expression, a mixture of concern and urgency. "Commander," Mara started politely, "if this is about my arrival time, the shuttle." "It's not that," Lysa interrupted. She walked to her desk, grabbed a small handheld scanner, and switched it on. A faint hum filled the room. "Is that standard protocol?" Mara asked carefully. Lysa shook her head. "This is for anomalies." Mara's heart tapped faster. "Anomalies?" The scanner gave a soft, irregular beep. She looked directly at Mara. "Your assigned room has a distortion inside it." Mara stared at her. "A distortion? As in, a malfunction?" "No," Lysa said, speaking slowly. "As in something that is not part of this reality." A chill passed through Mara's arms. "You mean something phased in?" "One. That's what the readings say." Mara opened her mouth to question further, but Lysa spoke again before she could. "And this happened exactly 15 minutes before your shuttle arrived." Mara felt the cold weight of the words settle into her stomach. "So you're saying," she said slowly, "something from another dimension waited inside my room for me to arrive." "That is one possibility," Lysa answered. "Another is that it is watching for someone who speaks your special field. Forced for, our life one." Mara understood what she meant. She was not a soldier, not an engineer, not a physicist. She was a xenolinguist. Her job was to understand alien forms of communication patterns, signals, symbolic languages. Many scientists thought her work unnecessary. After all, humanity had only met a handful of alien species, and most already spoke through translators. But there were old rumors in the galaxy. Rumors of beings older than stars. Rumors of species that did not communicate with words, sounds, or visuals, but with reality-bending signals and multidimensional patterns. Rumors that scientists avoided because they sounded like myths. Mara suddenly wondered if she had made a mistake coming here. What exactly did the distortion do? She asked. Lysa tapped the scanner. It appeared for 12 seconds, pulsed in a repeating pattern, then vanished. Repeating pattern? Mara repeated. Lysa nodded. It looked like language. That word changed everything. Mara felt her mind sharpen not with fear, but with an intense, scientific focus. You think it was a message? I don't know what it was, Lysa admitted. But every species in this sector has avoided Droshell for centuries. The last research station near this planet went silent 500 years ago. No one knows why. So when something unusual appears inside the quarters of the one human arriving with training in alien languages, she paused. I don't want you walking back into that room. Mara swallowed, fighting the urge to shiver. May I see the sensor data? Lysa raised an eyebrow. You want to see it now? Yes, Mara said firmly. If something tried to talk to us or to me, I need to know what it said. There was a long silence, broken only by the soft hum of the station systems. Lysa studied her, evaluating. Finally, she nodded. All right. But stay close. They left the quarters together, walking down the dim hallway. The flickering lights made the metal walls seem alive, breathing faint shadows that stretched and warped with every step. Mara stayed close behind Lysa, but her mind drifted through possibilities, calculations, theories, a distortion. A repeating pattern. In her assigned room. A resigned room. A repeating pattern. Nothing about that was random. When they reached Mara's door, room C12, Lysa held up the scanner. The device buzzed softly, lights blinking in a nervous rhythm. No active distortion right now, she said, but the residual energy is still strong. Mara exhaled slowly. May I go inside? Lysa shook her head immediately. Not until we confirm it's safe. She tapped the door controls. The metal slid open halfway, then paused, glitching, vibrating slightly, as if something invisible pressed against the mechanism. Lysa quickly shut it again. Exactly, she muttered. The systems are still unstable. Mara couldn't see the inside, but she sensed something wrong beyond the door. Not danger, not yet, but a presence. A feeling of being watched, like something stood just beyond the edge of perception. Commander, Mara said carefully. What did the distortion look like on the sensors? Lysa pulled a datapad from her pocket and handed it over. Mara tapped the screen, and a holographic image appeared. A floating lattice of thin, glowing lines forming a shape that was both familiar and impossible. It pulsed rhythmically, expanding and shrinking like a heartbeat. It almost looks like... Mara whispered. A symbol? Lysa finished. Mara nodded slowly. Yes, but not one I recognize. It repeated this exact sequence 3 times, Lysa said. And the moment it finished, it disappeared. Mara studied the pattern closer. The lines were not random. They curved, crossed, and aligned with deliberate intention. Even the glow seemed to have structure like data encoded in brightness changes. It was communication. Mara was suddenly aware that her hands had gone cold. This wasn't an accident. Great. I know, Lysa replied softly. There's meaning in this pattern. I guessed as much. Mara looked up. Commander, humanity has never seen anything like this before. I know that too, Lysa said. They stared at the door to C12, its metal surface quiet and still, yet holding a secret behind it. Mara exhaled. If this was a test, a message, or a warning, why choose me? Lysa folded her arms. Maybe because humans are the only species on record who don't freeze when facing the unknown. Mara gave a small, shaky laugh. That's a generous way to describe our stubbornness. It's why you're here, Lysa said plainly. Mara looked again at the closed door. She could almost imagine a faint glow leaking from the cracks, a silent pulse waiting patiently for her to understand. Her heart beat faster with a strange mix of fear and excitement. Something out there, something not from this reality, wanted to communicate. And it had chosen humanity's language expert. Lysa touched Mara's shoulder gently. "For your safety, you'll stay in my quarters tonight." Mara nodded. "Thank you. But tomorrow," Lysa continued, eyes sharp with determination, "we begin decoding this. Together." Mara felt a spark ignite inside her, not fear, but purpose. This was why she had come to the stars. To face the unknown. To understand what others feared. To answer the call no one else could hear. And now, the unknown had knocked on her door first. The next morning on Outpost Vale, 9 began with a dull metallic hum. The natural sound of the old station waking up. The lights brightened slowly, the air system released a soft hiss, and the long corridors filled with a quiet mechanical heartbeat. Dr. Mara Ellison did not sleep well. Commander Lisa Adek had offered her a spare bed in her quarters, but even with company the night felt heavy, as if something unseen hovered just outside the door. Mara had spent most of the night staring at the ceiling, replaying the sensor image, the strange, glowing lattice over and over in her mind. By the time morning came, she felt tired but focused. She dressed quickly and met Lysa near the door. "You ready?" the commander asked, tightening the straps of her uniform gloves. Mara nodded. "As ready as I can be." The two women walked through the hallway together. The lights flickered a little less today, but the metallic air still felt too cold, too still. The station was always quiet. But today, it felt silent in a different way. A waiting silence. A few other crew members were awake, a pair of engineers, a medic, a communications officer. They all watched Mara and Lysa with expressions that were a mix of worry and curiosity. Everyone had heard about the distortion in room C12. As they passed, the medic approached Lysa. "Commander," he said quietly, "if this is dangerous, I recommend—" "We're not opening the door," Lysa replied firmly. "We're just scanning and analyzing." The medic nodded but did not look convinced. Mara kept walking, her heart beating steadily. She understood the crew's nervousness. Space stations were supposed to be predictable places. Controlled environments. Anything unknown, especially something that wasn't physically visible, was the kind of thing that kept people awake at night. When they reached the research lab, Lysa opened the door and motioned Mara inside. The lab was small but well-equipped. Holographic screens lined one wall. Data chips were stacked neatly on tables. And a large sensor console stood in the center, like a high-tech altar. On the far side, a wide window overlooked the swirling clouds of Droshel below. Glowing faintly blue, like a sleeping ocean. Lisa handed Mara a fresh data pad. "I loaded all, recorded anomaly data from last night." "Thank you," Mara said, powering it on. She sat at a desk while Lysa moved to the sensor console. On the large display, a three-dimensional hologram of the distortion hovered. Even in still form, it pulsed faintly, as if memory alone carried a heartbeat. Mara studied it closely. She zoomed in on the lines. Curved, thin, glowing. "It's too structured for a natural event," Mara said. Lysa nodded. "My thoughts exactly." Mara tapped the screen. "It's almost like a symbol, but the lines are too clean. Almost geometric. Do you think it's a map?" "No," Mara answered slowly. "Maps don't pulse." This pattern repeated in a timed rhythm. More like a message being broadcast. "A signal," Lysa said. "Exactly." Mara began marking points on the hologram, tracking intersections and angles. She noticed something surprising. The lines were not flat. They were layered in different spatial depths, as if drawn across multiple planes. "This isn't two-dimensional," she said. "Whoever made this thinks in more dimensions than we do." Lisa raised an eyebrow. "Any species we know capable of that?" Mara shook her head. "None. Not naturally." The room fell quiet. Outside the window, clouds swirled over Droshel, slow and heavy. The planet had a strange reputation in galactic history, not for violence or war, but for silence. 500 years ago, an entire research station vanished without sending a distress call. No debris, no signals, no signs of struggle. Just gone. That event was the reason almost no one came here anymore. Except Outpost Vale 9, which was built much later, far above the planet's surface, with stronger shields and constant monitoring. Still, fear of the unknown lingered. Lisa broke the silence. "You said last night, this might be communication." Quote, "I still believe that," Mara said. "This looks intentional. So what does it say?" Mara sighed. "That part, I'm not sure." Lisa leaned against the table. "What's your first guess?" Mara studied the pulse rhythm again. "It could be a greeting, or a warning, or an identification. But the structure reminds me of linguistic roots. A kind of cosmic alphabet." Lisa nodded slowly. "If it's an alphabet, can you decode it?" "Maybe," Mara said quietly. "But I need more data." As if on cue, the sensor console beeped loudly. Both women turned. The screen flashed red. "Anomaly detected location. C-12. Lisa straightened instantly. "It's back." Mara's heart jumped. "Is it stable?" "Reading a small but active distortion," Lisa said, fingers flying over controls. "Stronger than last time." Mara took a slow breath. "Show me." Lisa opened the real-time feed. A small hologram projected the inside of Mara's assigned room, though the camera glitched, warping the image. In the center of the room, space itself bent inward like a soft whirlpool. Thin lines of light, twisted and curved, forming the same lattice shape as before. But this time, the pulse was faster, urgent. Mara leaned closer. "It's changing. See that? It's modifying its angles." "It's reacting," Lisa said. "To what?" The distortion suddenly flickered, stretching into a taller shape, almost like a silhouette made of lines. Mara felt her breath freeze. "It looks like it's trying to take form," she whispered. Lisa watched with tense eyes. Why now? Mara didn't know, but she felt deep inside that this wasn't random. Something was trying harder to communicate. The distortion pulsed sharply 3 times. Pulse, pulse, pulse. Mara stepped back. That wasn't random. That was a signal. "You're sure?" "Yes," Mara said. "It's calling someone. Or something." Lisa turned off the feed and grabbed the scanner. "We need to go. Now." Mara blinked. "To C-12? "No," Lisa said firmly. "If that thing is getting stronger, we keep you away from it. But if it's trying to talk..." Lisa gave her a hard look. "If it can break reality, Mara, we don't risk walking straight into it." Mara hesitated. She understood the danger. But she also felt the tug of her curiosity of the scientist inside her, who desperately wanted to know the meaning behind the distortion. Still, she followed Lisa out of the lab. As they walked down the hallway, the station lights dimmed for a moment, then brightened suddenly. Mara didn't miss the way Lisa tensed. "That wasn't a malfunction, was it?" Mara asked quietly. "No," Lisa answered. "The distortion is affecting the energy grid." They kept walking. When they passed the engineering bay, one of the engineers stepped out. "Commander," he said quickly, "power readings spiked near C-deck. I think we should isolate the area." Lisa didn't slow. "Do it. And seal off C-12 completely." "Yes, ma'am." Mara continued walking, her pulse fast. She tried to imagine the distortion in her room, glowing and shifting, sending signals to no one, or perhaps not to no one. Perhaps it was calling for her. When they reached a small observation lounge, Lisa stopped. "Sit," she ordered gently. Mara sat on a bench near the wide window. Droshel's blue clouds churned slowly below. Lisa paced for a moment, thinking. Then she spoke. "Mara, Do you know what species lived here before the planet went silent? Mara nodded. The Droshalan. A peaceful, research-based civilization. They disappeared without warning, Lysa said. No messages, no distress calls, just silence. Mara swallowed. You think the distortion is connected to them? I don't know, Lysa admitted. But whatever happened back then, we cannot underestimate it. Mara stared at the planet below. The distortion wasn't hostile. It bent a door mechanism, Lysa reminded her. It destabilized sensors. It could destabilize more. Mara knew Lysa was right, but she couldn't shake the feeling that the distortion wasn't there to harm her. It was trying to be understood. Commander, Mara said softly. What if this isn't an attack? Lysa raised an eyebrow. Opportunity for what? For contact, Mara whispered, with something we have never seen before, something beyond this dimension. Lysa sighed. You sound excited. I am, Mara admitted. A little scared too, but mostly excited. Lysa sat beside her. Humanity always runs toward danger. With curiosity. Humanity. Lysa. Humanity. Humanity. Mara smiled faintly. You say that like it's a flaw. It's why we survive, Lysa replied. Before Mara could respond, the station alarm chimed a soft warning tone. Not an emergency, but a signal of new activity. The intercom activated. Commander Adek, anomaly pattern is shifting again. Movement detected. Mara and Lysa looked at each other. What kind of movement? Lysa asked. The voice replied, trembling slightly. It's moving out of room C12. Mara's breath caught. It's coming toward us, Lysa whispered. The moment the announcement echoed through the station, it's moving out of room C12. Mara Ellison felt her breath freeze in her chest. Commander Lysa Adek reacted first. She grabbed her wrist gently, but firmly. Stay close to me, she said. Mara nodded quickly. They stepped out of the observation lounge and into the hallway. The lights overhead flickered again, this time in long, uneven pulses. The metal walls vibrated faintly, like a silent heartbeat traveling through the station. Lysa tapped her comm. Control, report anomaly location. A shaky voice responded. It left C12 2 minutes ago. Mara swallowed. Searching for me? We? Seepsav. We? Searching for me? Lysa didn't answer, but her expression said everything. They moved through the corridor. Now empty, except for them. Most crew members were either hiding behind sealed doors or monitoring the anomaly from safe rooms. The air felt heavier, like the station itself was holding its breath. As they walked, Mara felt a strange warmth on her skin, not from heat, but from something subtle and unseen. Like a soft light brushing the edges of her consciousness. She didn't tell Lysa. Not yet. Lysa slowed near a corner. The energy spike is close. Stay behind me. Mara obeyed, but she leaned slightly forward, trying to sense something, anything. Then she heard it. A faint, rhythmic hum. Not mechanical, not natural. A pattern. She gasped quietly. That sound. Commander! It's the same rhythm from the distortion. Lysa stiffened. It's close. They stepped around the corner. At first, the hallway looked normal. Then the air in front of them rippled. Light bent inward, forming thin, glowing lines the same lattice shape from the camera feed. It hovered above the floor, twisting slowly, like a floating geometric sculpture. Every line glimmered with a soft blue glow, pulsing faster each second. Mara stared at it with wide eyes. It's beautiful, she whispered. Lysa stepped closer, raising the scanner. This thing is rewriting the air molecules, she said. It's bending reality like it's nothing. Mara didn't take her eyes away from it. It's communicating. Lysa looked at her. Communicating what? I don't know, Mara admitted, but it keeps repeating the rhythm. That's a message. The lattice pulsed again. This time, the rhythm changed slightly longer, slower, more deliberate. Mara stepped forward. Lysa grabbed her arm. Mara, no. Stay back. Mara shook her head. It's not attacking. If it wanted to hurt us, it could have. It's trying to show something. Mara, trust me. Lysa hesitated, then slowly loosened her grip. Mara walked forward one careful step at a time. The glowing lines shifted, as if aware of her presence. They tightened, aligned, and curved with new purpose, forming a spiral-like shape. Mara's heart raced. It changed when I got closer, she said. The lattice pulsed again. Mara closed her eyes and listened. The rhythm repeated in a 3-beat pattern, followed by a pause, and then another series of pulses. It's like a greeting, she said softly. A hello, in its own form. Lysa kept scanning. Energy stability is holding, but be careful. I am. Mara took another step. The distortion reacted instantly. The lines compressed inward and expanded outward like a heartbeat. For a moment, the shape stretched upward, forming a silhouette tall, abstract, not humanoid but not random either. Almost like a creature made of light and geometry. Mara felt her chest tighten with awe. It's trying to take shape again. The silhouette flickered, then collapsed back into a floating lattice. Mara studied the lines. Commander, I think the shape it's forming depends on what it senses from us. You mean it's trying to match our perception? Yes. It wants us to understand it. Lysa frowned. How can you tell? Because the shape only forms when I get close. The lattice pulsed brightly, as if agreeing. Mara's eyes widened. Commander, I think it recognizes that I'm the one who can interpret it. Lysa lowered her scanner slightly. Then what does it want? Mara took a shaky breath. I think it wants us to reply. The moment she said the word reply, the lattice contracted sharply. A thin beam of soft light extended toward her, stopping several inches from her chest. It didn't touch her, it just hovered, waiting. Lysa stepped forward quickly. Mara, don't let it. It's asking for contact, Mara said. Not physical, cognitive. Lysa froze. And how do you know that? Mara hesitated. She hadn't wanted to say anything yet, but she no longer had a choice. I've been feeling it, she whispered. Since last night. Like a faint pressure in my mind. Not harmful, just present, like it's trying to sense me from far away. Lysa stared. You felt this and didn't tell me? I wasn't sure if it was real. The lattice pulsed softly, almost like reassurance. Lysa exhaled heavily. All right. So what now? Mara turned toward the distortion. We answer back. But how? With patterns, Mara said. It doesn't communicate with sound or words. It uses geometry, rhythm, structure. Lysa frowned. We don't have alien-shaped laser tools. We don't need them. Mara raised her hand slowly. I can mimic the rhythm, she said. With motion. She moved her hands through the air in slow, steady motions, tracing a simple shape. A circle. Then, a line. The lattice watched. Its glowing lines shifted in response, forming a small spiral that matched her movement. Mara gasped softly. It understood, she said. Commander, it's interacting. Lysa's voice softened. Then keep going. Mara continued tracing simple shapes, and the lattice imitated each one, not exactly, but in a way that felt intentional, like a mind learning a new language. Then the lattice did something new. It created a shape Mara had never seen. A 3-dimensional spiral that twisted inward, then outward, forming a path-like structure. Mara felt a sudden pressure in her mind again, stronger than before but not painful. A message. A concept. A route, she whispered. A path. Lysa stepped closer. A path to what? Mara shook her head slowly. The lattice pulsed faster. The hallway lights buzzed overhead as if struggling to keep up with the energy. Mara, Lysa said, her voice tight. The readings are spiking. It's okay. The lattice expanded, filling more of the hallway, not threatening, but revealing. Its lines stretched into a huge pattern, a network of curves and spirals. Mara stared in awe. Commander, this is a map. Lysa blinked. A map of what? Slipspace corridors, Mara breathed. Hidden ones. Routes no species has ever found. Lysa stared at the glowing structure. Why would it show us this? Mara didn't answer at first. She watched as the lattice pulsed again, this time with slow, steady rhythm. 3 pulses. A pause. 3 pulses. A longer pause. It's testing us, she said. Seeing if we can understand. Seeing if we're worthy. Lysa frowned. Worthy of what? Access, Mara said softly. To knowledge. To travel routes. To power no other species has. The lattice suddenly compressed back to its original shape, small, floating, waiting. The hallway fell silent. Mara stepped back slowly. She felt dizzy, overwhelmed, but strangely calm. It's waiting for our decision, she said. Lysa's eyes narrowed. Decision? Yes. Whether we accept the map it's offering. Lysa lowered the scanner. And if we accept? What happens then? Mara looked at the lattice, the being, the intelligence, whatever it truly was. Then she whispered, I think humanity will change forever. The lattice pulsed once. Bright, controlled, deliberate. A yes. The corridor was silent again, except for the faint humming of the glowing lattice shape floating in the air. It pulsed softly, like a calm heartbeat, waiting for a response. Doctor. Mara Ellison stood in front of it, her breath slow and steady. Commander Lysa Adek stood beside her, alert and tense, scanning everything with sharp eyes. The distortion, the being of light and geometry, had offered them something unimaginable. A map of hidden slipspace corridors, secret routes across the galaxy, power beyond anything known. Now it waited. What do we do? Lysa asked quietly. Mara didn't answer right away. Her mind raced. She knew one thing. The being wasn't here to harm them. Everything it showed was structured, intentional, controlled. A message, not an attack. It wants us to respond, Mara said finally. It wants to know what we choose. Lysa crossed her arms. If we accept this, we change the balance of the entire galaxy. Humans will have access to places no one has ever seen. That's why it chose us, Mara said softly. Lysa gave a faint smile. We usually run straight into it. The lattice pulsed again, brighter this time, as if urging them. Mara stepped forward. It's waiting for trust. Lysa looked at her sharply. Mara. I know, Mara said. It's dangerous. It's an unknown entity. But it hasn't hurt anyone on this station. And last night, when it tried to reach out to my mind, it didn't push. It only asked. Lysa hesitated. She trusted data more than intuition. But she also trusted Mara. Mara, she said quietly, if you do this, you won't want to go back to your normal life after. Everything will be different. Mara smiled softly. I think that's the point. She lifted her hand slowly. The lattice responded instantly. Its glowing lines stretched toward her, stopping only centimeters away. The air between them vibrated gently, like a low chord of music. Okay, Mara whispered. Let's talk. She traced a simple shape in the air, a circle connected to a line, a symbol she had created earlier for, I understand. The lattice flickered, then formed the same symbol. Lysa exhaled slowly. It answered. Mara continued. She traced a spiral, the symbol she had decided meant, yes. The lattice repeated it. Then, slowly, carefully, Mara drew a new shape. Two spirals connected at one point. A symbol she hoped would communicate a question. Why us? The lattice reacted. Its shape folded inward like a flower closing, then opened again in a completely new pattern. A complex web of lines that spun slowly. Inside it, a smaller shape formed. A thin beam of light, shaped almost like a human silhouette. Mara stared. Commander, that's humanity. Lysa's eyes widened. Are you sure? Yes, Mara said. It's shaped like us, or at least how it perceives us. The lattice added another shape, a tall, multi-layered geometric form. It pulsed and shifted. Harder to interpret. More alien. That must be them, Mara said quietly. Their identity. There. Then the two shapes moved closer together. A thin line connected them. A connection. They're showing us, Mara whispered. They chose us because we reached toward them, because we didn't run. Lysa nodded slowly. Most species avoid Droshel. Humans came to study it. The lattice pulsed brighter, confirming their interpretation. Mara stepped forward. We accept. The moment the words left her mouth, the lattice exploded into a bloom of soft blue light. It filled the hallway, covering walls and floor in shimmering lines. But it did not harm them. Instead, it felt like walking through a warm breeze. The lights of the station flickered, but this time not from malfunction. Something was changing in the energy around them. Lysa raised her scanner. The light from the distortion folded in on itself, forming a final pattern, a crystalline shape hovering in the air. Slowly, gently, it floated toward Mara until it rested inches from her hands. She cupped her palms beneath it. It's giving us something, she said quietly. Lysa stared. What is it? Mara studied the object. It looked solid, but its surface shimmered with shifting patterns, like thousands of tiny lines forming and reforming. A data core, Mara guessed. Everything it showed us, maybe even more. The lattice pulsed a final time, a soft, fading glow. Then, slowly, its shape dissolved. The lines thinned into dust-like particles of light, drifting upward until they disappeared into the air. The hallway fell silent. It was gone. Mara stood still, holding the strange crystalline data core. She felt a deep quiet inside her, the kind that followed great change. Lysa touched her shoulder gently. You did it. We did it, Mara corrected. But she felt the truth settle in her chest. Humanity had been chosen. Not because they were the strongest, not because they were the oldest, but because they were the ones who dared to step forward instead of back. A voice crackled over the station comm. Commander Adek, anomaly has vanished. All systems stabilizing. What happened out there? Lysa looked at Mara, then at the empty air where the lattice had been. Something extraordinary, she replied. Mara smiled faintly. They trusted us, Commander. And now we have to honor that. I cooled B, odor thing. Lysa nodded slowly. We're going to need the whole crew, and probably the entire research council. And more time, Mara added. She held up the shimmering data core. This could be centuries worth of knowledge. Lysa exhaled, half amazed, half overwhelmed. Humanity won't be the same after this. Mara looked out a small window at the swirling clouds of Droshel far below. The planet looked peaceful today, as if waiting quietly for the next chapter. Commander, she said softly. You were right last night. About what? When you told me I wouldn't want to go back to my place. Lysa smiled gently. You still don't. No, Mara agreed. Not after this. Lysa placed her hand on Mara's. Then let's go forward. Together. They walked down the hallway toward the command center. Crew members peeked out from rooms as they passed, curiosity and fear mixing in their expressions. But when they saw the calm in Lysa's stance and the glowing core in Mara's hands, fear slowly shifted into awe. Whatever had arrived through the distortion, whatever intelligence had reached out across realities, had chosen to leave its message in human hands. Mara felt a deep sense of responsibility. The future of humanity, and perhaps the entire galaxy, had changed direction in one quiet corridor of an old research station. Not through war, not through fear, but through curiosity, courage, and a willingness to speak with the unknown. She looked at Lysa. "Ready?" Mara asked. Lysa nodded firmly. "Always." Together, they stepped into the future.